just like, I don't know. A
That's
fresh
fair,
pot of coffee is just, there's nothing better.
I think all black coffee tastes the same, so you're gonna hate me.
Are you
a lot.
drinking black?
No, this is actually.
Oh, yeah,
creamer,
I was going to
but
say, I thought you put creamer
my
in
first cup was black though.
That makes sense.
But either way, there is something in the way. Welcome back to Coffee Time with Jay and Matt. Can you guess what movie we're gonna talk about?
What a absolutely phenomenal transition. Yeah, we're talking about the Batman.
The Batman, the newest one, the 2022 one. It's 2022, right? This is the current year.
I was literally about to correct you and say 2021, but yeah, it's 2022.
My God, time
Good thing
flies.
I was taking a sip of coffee.
But yeah, no, I guess, Matt, what were your expectations of this movie? Because I think we had similar ones.
Yeah. I mean, it's the Batman.
It is the Batman.
I remember this movie getting announced and seeing the teaser for it with just Robert Pattinson like walking up to the screen, and I had nothing. I didn't feel anything. I didn't care. I was like, it's another Batman movie.
Right.
But then I saw the teaser trailer in October of 2020. Wow, was that a trailer? And instantly became one of my most anticipated movies of my whole life. I watched that trailer probably once a day for like 3 weeks. I was just so excited to see this movie, to see the experience Matt Reeves was going to give me, and the fact that it was Matt Reeves giving it, coming off the 2 Planet of the Apes movies and the Cloverfield movie. Yeah, he did the first Cloverfield, which you're a big fan of.
Yeah.
And especially that last Planet of the Apes movie. I didn't really like the first 2, but that last one.
You've always talked highly of it.
It's the first, the opening shot of that movie is one of the most intense things I've ever seen in my whole life. Like that opening bit. I can't find it on YouTube, sadly, and I didn't love it enough to buy it, so I just have the memory of seeing that in theaters. I need to see it again though. But
on the bright side, the opening of the Batman is, you can watch the narration on YouTube as well. So.
But really quickly, just because one last thing about my expectations, because I had a lot of expectations going in. I am a huge fan of Ben Affleck's Batman, and I was talking about in our last Batman review, I liked Batman vs Superman. Now it's a mess, but I really just liked all the Easter eggs and everything it was setting up. I was just getting excited as a fan. It's not a great movie, but I thought everything they did with Batman was kind of interesting, and I felt like this was one of the most comic accurate live action Batmans that we have gotten. And then of course the whole debacle with Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League, which we will talk about at some point on this show, just led to Ben Affleck not doing this. So I think when I first saw it, I was kind of had a bad flavor in my mouth because it was just coming off of Batman, or Ben Affleck, who was no longer going to be Batman. And I was like, I kind of wanted to see the movie he was making. I was really excited. And the movie he was making turned into the Batman. That same screenplay was just getting tossed around for a little bit and turned into the Batman until it finally hit Matt Reeves. And he was watching Good Times, Robert Pattinson's movie. And that's when he was like, oh, wait a minute.
That's what I just said.
Yeah. He was like, I think this might be perfect. So he wrote the role for Robert Pattinson because of Good Times.
That's amazing.
And then, of course, now what are your expectations? What were your expectations?
Yeah, I think similar to the teaser trailer, because I remember this movie really hit of how good it was going to be. Walking out of the lighthouse and having that experience, and then learning it was Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
That was just, I knew what he was coming off of. I had watched Good Times, just walked in on you watching the opening. I was like, what is this movie? And I watched it with you. One of my favorite movies. And having those 2 experiences of Robert Pattinson and then put into a Batman with that trailer, all I remember of the past, how many years has just been, when does the Batman come out? Is it soon enough? It's not soon enough.
I remember I'd get texts like, when's the Batman coming out? And the amount of times I would go look and just keep seeing the date get pushed back because of COVID.
Exactly, yeah. And so many, did the Batman get delayed texts sent to you? Because I was always worried. It was like, I think I woke up, the first thing on my mind was, is the Batman delayed? We don't know. But my expectations were so high for this movie. And let me tell you, this has been a long time since I have had this high expectations, and they delivered, Matt.
They were better than, this movie. This movie is really good, guys.
Really, I had expectations and I had fears, and all those, when I sat down, they were gone. It was pure, just ecstasy on the screen, just a pure enjoyment going on. I was so excited.
The first 25 to 30-ish minutes of this movie is probably the best bit of cinema I've ever seen in my entire life. It's really good.
It is
it's just again, this is a non-spoiler review, so we're not going to get into that much detail with it. But it just starts, and you just get this glimpse of where Batman is year 2, and what his mindset is, and how he's been approaching fighting criminals and what's been going on. And I mean, I get chills thinking about it. It's some of the greatest things I've ever seen. This is a movie.
He put his coffee down.
I had to put my coffee down. This is a movie that focuses on looking at criminals, looking at just long, dark hallways, and you hear like footsteps, but you never see anything. Like, it's just the fear that sinks into criminals, and sometimes he comes out of those shadows. You're kidding me. You're kidding me. That's so awesome.
You mentioned it before about Matt Reeves and his horror experience and stuff, and the opening just like they put you in the shoes of the criminals so well, better than I think any Batman movies have done, better than a lot of movies have done to put you in general. On top of that,
better than Joker did.
Better than Joker for sure. The Joker, oh man, that movie did not go as well during time, but oh well.
Yeah.
But the footsteps, the soundtrack, the sound design, everything about the visuals and the film noir lighting, just all that in the opening scene was the biggest boom they could have given you to pull you into this movie, because you were scared, excited, and hyped. Maybe I was hyped, but you know.
I was losing my marbles.
It was so exciting, and it was just such a great way to open the movie like that, which is I think one of the positives, the opening.
Yeah.
Despite it, I usually talk about not liking narration, but this narration being put over this soundtrack, this sound design, and these scenes, just I think it did a great job of opening.
Entering and exiting this movie with hearing Bruce Wayne's narration was one of the best ideas in any Batman movie. Yeah. It really feels like you're getting put into the center of Batman, which will go off on my first positive here. This is the first Batman movie. This is kind of a hot take, I guess. This is the first Batman movie since 2005.
Yeah.
Every other Batman movie has been about his villains, or about Superman, or about the Justice League. We haven't had a movie that breaks down Batman, the idea of being a hero, this sort of caped crusader going out at night and fighting criminals, but not killing them, going by a different code. Like, how do the cops feel about that? No movie has handled that since Batman Begins. And I'm not a big fan of Batman Begins. So, like, I haven't had this sort of Batman, like, I have Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
When I want to watch Spider-Man, I have the greatest Spider-Man movie that will ever be made. I have Spider-Man 2. I can just go watch it, and it's there. But in the Batman, I didn't have that. And now I have that. I now call him the Batman.
The Batman.
The Batman.
Vengeance.
Yeah. Which we'll get into the whole vengeance thing. But I didn't have that for Batman. This movie is that to me. This is the definitive Batman movie that not only explores Batman and his ideals and his personalities, but it explores villains. It explores the city more. It explores the drug trade more. It dives into all of it.
Yeah.
And every other Batman movie, I feel like, is always like, nah, let's just do Joker. Like, why do you remember The Dark Knight? Joker. Why do you remember The Dark Knight Rises? Bane.
Yeah, no, I think the Batman, it fits more of a sort of like superhero character study without losing its superhero traits, because it still felt like a superhero movie that wasn't a cookie cutter plot.
Yeah.
And I think this did what I wanted Joker to do for the Joker, but this time it did it for the Batman in a way that I didn't even think was possible for a filmmaker to do, where everything with the visuals tied in with the character, the fight scenes, his acting, Robert Pattinson did a great job. Everything was just...
You're making me want to talk about a lot here. Because can we jump real quick and talk about the action?
Absolutely, we can talk about the action.
Is this the greatest action in any movie?
This might have to be, honestly.
Like, Ben Affleck talked a lot about he wanted his movie to feel like the Batman Arkham games, especially the combat. And you get that in Batman versus Superman in that warehouse scene. But I think this movie tried to stick with it a little bit. You know, scale it down, make it maybe not feel so overpowered.
Yep.
But just make it feel very fluent, very hand-to-hand combat. All the action's very wide shots, just not cutting around too much, letting the choreography tell the story.
Yeah.
And especially again, just going back to the opening, and it's in the teaser trailer, but there's this one guy who just runs at Batman.
The hell are you supposed to be?
Yeah, and just Batman tears him down.
Tears him apart. Oh my god.
Tears him down.
I think one of my favorite parts of the action is what you mentioned, where it's not overbearing and like boisterous, and it isn't just like super flashy. Where this feels like the most believable and realistic Gotham Batman setting that I've seen in a long time, where it feels like, it being a live action movie too, it feels like it's really fitting, and we're watching this character go through all this like heroism and trying to be a hero, and not, you know, I don't want to spoil too much about it, but the action, without it being super over the top, and a lot of the theatricals and like a lot of the stunts were done in ways that made it believable with the gadgets and everything.
The gadgets they use in this
gadgets,
movie are
yeah.
so cool. So many live-action Batman movies. Well, like you get like the shark repellent,
Yeah.
and like that's the best Batman gadget ever.
Of course, most
course.
useful, right?
But the gadgets they used in this movie, I like how they used them. They didn't show them a lot in the trailers. They kind of let that play out. This Batman feels like a detective.
Yeah, 100%.
And you get a bit of that with Nolan's trilogy. There's a quick scene where Batman like pulls out an odd thing and rubs it over money, and that's it, really.
Oh, he's a detective. Okay.
He's a detective, guys.
I agree with that sentiment for sure. He feels the most like a detective / vigilante / edgy Night Lord vengeance man,
Yeah.
and he embodies that so well. And Robert Pattinson was another highlight of acting. But I mean, do you have anything else about because I think the acting of Robert Pattinson was
Yeah.
definitely a
We'll
highlight
go
for
to
me.
the acting. You made me want to jump to the music because you're saying
Music,
the edgy stuff.
man.
But well, we can jump to the acting real quick. Robert Pattinson is my favorite on-screen Batman. The main criticism I hear from this movie is not a lot of people like his Bruce Wayne, which I argue. I'm a huge fan of his Bruce Wayne. I think Christian Bale did a great job sort of playing that playboy millionaire moron and then being Batman. Yeah. That's a great difference. I think Ben Affleck also did a pretty decent job, although those movies don't focus on that much. I like the idea that this is a younger Batman who doesn't really have that yet. He doesn't know how to act in civilization. Like the Batman, his mask, he feels way more comfortable in. He doesn't feel comfortable as Bruce Wayne. And maybe I'm a little bit biased towards it because I watched an interview, and one of my favorite directors is Gus Van Sant.
Of course.
Who's the guy, his biggest movie was the Matt Damon,
Oh man, it's not
Good Will
Jared.
Hunting.
Good Will Hunting.
Good Will
right.
Hunting. I couldn't think of it. His biggest movie was Good Will Hunting. But he did a trilogy of movies called the Death Trilogy. And
Yeah.
one of them is called Last Days, which biopic the last days of Kurt Cobain. And Matt Reeves, the director of The Batman, had talked a lot about how he took a lot of inspiration for the Bruce Wayne character and how he treats his manner like Kurt Cobain.
Wow.
And that's super interesting, and I think it worked. I think this sort of like lost soul in this crowded mansion full of these memories he doesn't like thinking about was a great idea. And there's this great scene where like you see him just walk into his parents' bedroom, and it's just like one shot, and the music just swells up, and he just walks in. And it's just scenes of him walking around the house that really reminded me of Gus Van Sant and really brought out a bit more of that orphan in Bruce Wayne, which makes me like this Bruce Wayne.
I want to touch on a point you brought up where he felt more comfortable with the mask and with the Batman suit on. When you saw him when he was Bruce Wayne, he was always a loner. With I think the only person he really talked to with
Alfred.
Alfred. It was the only conversations he actually had as Bruce Wayne instead of just as this billionaire in the city, and people like the mayor would talk to him, but it was never like anything of value. But when he was Batman, he had Gordon, he talked to the entire city. Catwoman, yeah.
Which we have yet to bring up. You know why?
Zoe
You know what
Kravitz.
makes this such a great Batman movie? We've only talked about Batman,
We've only talked about
and
it.
everyone surrounding him was kind of equally as good as him.
They were.
Yeah.
And on top of being a great character writing wise, they helped make me love Batman more too. It's great. Like, how do they do that?
this movie. Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman is
Top tier,
awesome.
yeah.
Jeffrey Wright as Gordon is awesome.
Oh my God, yeah.
The standout for me in this movie is Colin Farrell as Penguin, if not
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about Batman. He's incredible. I thought, like, you had a lot of shoes to fill coming off of Danny DeVito. Not that I don't love that movie, and that's a tough movie.
Yeah.
But Danny DeVito does play an interesting, good Penguin. Colin Farrell is just... I'm so excited to see what they do with this character moving forward. I heard there is a series coming out revolving around him that's going to be like his uptaking of the criminal world. All of that stuff sounds awesome.
You're getting me too excited
Yeah,
right now. The first scene when you see Penguin in his introduction was one of my favorite scenes just because of the way he was acting, and
I agree.
his introduction was great. I don't know, I really love that scene.
Yeah. But then, of course, the one last supporting character is the Riddler.
The Riddler, yeah.
Who played by Paul Dano. And the second that casting got announced, I got really excited for this movie because he's such a bold actor. Paul Dano is a very go-for-it actor. There's a lot of times I've heard audiences being like, that didn't work. Like, they're not a big fan of his performance because he's willing to do the thing that you're probably not expecting.
Yeah.
He went crazy for this role. There's a scene he did like 200 takes for. He actually wrapped his face in
Like duct tape or?
no, like not styrofoam wrap. some sort of like wrap.
Yeah,
He wrapped
yeah.
his face in wraps like he couldn't breathe, and that was actually like inspired him to have the mask, and like the thing on the back of his neck is that sort of, on the back of his head, it's that wrap. Paul Dano's just that kind of actor.
Yeah, I think he, especially for the way that Robert Pattinson handled Bruce Wayne and Batman, where there was this very extreme personalities of Batman and Bruce Wayne, and then having the Riddler be this very extreme, like just psychotic Riddler, you know, this joke maker, not a joke maker, but this riddle maker. He did a fantastic job of being this, actually felt psychotic and actually felt like he was. Man, there's so much of the movie that I don't want to spoil, but the way they handled the relationship between Batman and the Riddler too was just, it was
when
fantastic.
like you put together why the Riddler's doing what he's doing.
Yeah,
And how it involves Batman.
his motives.
Perfect. It's perfect. It makes so much sense. The overall theme of how it connects back to the larger story they're telling for Batman, it's perfect.
100%.
It's perfect.
Yeah, everything about the Riddler I think was fantastic. I was scared that they wouldn't do a great job with him. Actually, I didn't even know what the casting was because most of my movie information comes from you.
Yeah.
I think you never mentioned it to me. But now seeing it, and I've seen him work in other shows and movies I can't put a finger on right now, but I think it was a highlight. I think. What other positives do you have here before we go to any negatives? 'Cause I have a lot of positives.
I wanted to do one more quick Riddler thing, and then I was just gonna pop
go
off.
for it.
There's so many positives for this movie.
There are.
We're sorry for the long review. Just like this was, to be as excited for this movie as we were, and then to actually walk out and it not only met my expectations, but it's only gotten better. I've seen it 3 times now, and every time I've seen it, it's gotten better. Like this movie's incredible. But the Riddler, Edward Nashton is the last name they go with. The comic name is Edward Nigma.
Okay.
Although that still might be his name in this, because like you never know. It's a Riddler. The Riddler's super eccentric and kind of funny and over the top, and I think Paul Dano does such a great job. There's a lot of people I've heard be like it's a little over the top for them, and it's like not the best performance, but I disagree. I think with the character and his like quick explosions and then brought back to calmness, like that feels like Edward Nigma.
Yeah.
That feels like that Riddler character, which is not. I guess it's a little bit how like the Jim Carrey Riddler went. It's such a
Yeah,
very
very
different
true.
interpretation of that character.
I can see the critiques, but I think the way that he handled it fit the movie in the best way that I would have wanted to see it.
I agree.
I can see it being too much for people, but at the same time, I don't think there would have been a version of him I would have personally liked better.
The biggest plus I might have to give this movie is just the world.
The world.
Gotham has never felt more real. Like you had Gotham in Batman Begins, and then you cut to The Dark Knight, and the rest of Batman takes place in Chicago. Ever since Batman Begins, Batman's taking
place.
English. Batman's taken place in Chicago, and it's always annoyed me because Batman is in Gotham,
Right.
Which is Jersey, and then Metropolis is New York. It all lines up.
It all makes sense
It all
now.
lines up, but no.
The world building.
Yeah, the world building, but the world building of the Batman is so perfect. Like every street lamp you see, the light bulb falls nearly. They're flickering. They're not light enough. Like it looks dark. It's always raining, which was a huge inspiration from Seven, Rockin' the Bug.
Fantastic movie as well.
Another fantastic movie. David Fincher really wanted to make sure that New York just seemed terrible.
Yeah.
The worst place in the whole world to live.
It was so gritty and grungy, and all the characters fit that, as well as their placements in the world, and even things like the nightclubs and stuff like that. Like the life of the city still felt so like there was something underneath that we weren't seeing. There was something under the surface of stuff that was happening that it fits the world so well. Which also I want to give credit to the film noir aesthetic. I think was, I don't know why it hasn't been done to this way for Gotham in the past, but oh my God, it fits the city
It's
so
like
well.
you watch the animated series, and they did this in the animated series. And then you watch Batman Begins, and it actually is in Batman Begins. There is an element of it, but they just lose it.
Yeah.
They always just lose it. The Nolan series, and like you hear us talk about the Nolan series a lot. It's just because it's the one thing we can compare it to easily. They're known as the best Batman movies. But honestly, those movies turn way much more into Christopher Nolan thrillers over Batman movies for me.
I agree.
There is a point in this where, well, this is actually another great positive I can give this movie. I watch Christopher Nolan Batman movies, and I have to tell myself I'm watching Batman. I always like to go off on other movies, but I watch the Disney Star Wars movies, and I have to tell myself I'm watching Star Wars.
Yeah.
I was watching the Batman, and there was no point in time I had to say I was watching Batman. I was watching Batman and I knew it.
Yeah,
I didn't have to like force myself to say it. I was like, it was Batman.
It was
and
happening.
It felt like Batman, which is the biggest positive I could give this movie.
And if you take away a lot of the Batman elements, I think the movie holds so well still as a character study of this character that is going through this mental, he's going through this big point in his life where he's still early in his career. And the visuals, everything of the color orange as well, having this motif throughout the movie, which if you're gonna watch the movie,
it's like the color orange and teal.
And teal,
it's like those two colors contrasted always in this movie.
Beautiful color scheme as well,
beautiful.
I think.
The fact that this movie opens on Halloween makes it the best Batman movie.
I love Halloween.
I love Halloween. And just the fact that this movie opens on Halloween.
Yeah, it makes it 100 times better.
But then quickly, the last positive we got to talk about, and we have to talk about it, is the music. This could be one of the absolute best soundtracks I've ever heard in my whole life. I listened to it on repeat. I've had it on repeat for the past like 3 weeks since the movie came out. Each song is so good. It's this perfect combination of this horror soundtrack, this monster coming at you, and then this beautiful classical score. It's like these two contrast each other so perfectly.
What did I screenshot and send you the week before this movie every day? A picture of the Batman soundtrack playing on my phone. Every day of the week coming to this movie, I was listening to it. Because the way they also mix like Nirvana into this aesthetic.
Yeah, and it goes
theme.
into like my punk rock thing.
Yeah.
Like this movie, they just went, this movie's punk rock.
Yeah.
Like they just gave it this punk rock aesthetic. Even Batman's design, Riddler's design, the dialogue, the world, it all feels kind of punk rock.
It does.
And Nirvana's Something in the Way, I think perfectly sums up this movie.
100%. If it's Gotham, if it's the characters, if it's even the action, everything, the horror elements from the beginning of the movie, everything, it creates so much tension. And it's not something that it's forced tension through the music. It's music that adds to what's already put on the screen, the visuals and the lighting and everything and the characters. It adds to it, and it's such a. I'm gonna listen to the soundtrack on the way home now. Like it's fantastic.
I'm gonna toss it on the way home too. It's one of the best. Negatives, and I think just really quickly. I know I just talked about positive with the music, but like my negatives kind of flow funny from music into this because I have a negative. I'm not going to take any points off of the movie. I just have to bring this up. Have you read the titles to the soundtrack of the Batman?
Yes.
They're terrible.
I like them.
No. The Batmobile, which is one of the best scenes in that movie. That scene, and when we saw it opening night, I just started punching you.
My arm was sore. Not
Yeah, I got so hyped. I just was like, oh my god.
I
Like
could see him bouncing in his seat.
The way the engine kicks in, but we get so off topic, but the
titles of the soundtrack.
Titles, that soundtrack. Do you know what that song's called?
What's it called?
Highway to the Anger Zone.
Now
I don't know if you know, but there is a popular classic rock song called Highway to the Danger Zone,
yeah.
and
the Catwoman's theme is called, I think it's A Perfect Crime or something, a Perfect Burglary or something.
The first song on it, which is my favorite song on it, is called Can't Fight City Halloween. I don't do good English. I couldn't even say that right. But like, why did they name it these things? I'm not gonna. It's nothing against the movie.
Yeah.
I think these were probably just like little titles that the composer, I can't pronounce his last name, but Michael G. I'll call him Michael G. That Michael G. put and just was like ways to market. And maybe that just stuck as the titles. Like it's nothing against the movie.
I think they work, honestly.
What? Highway to the Anger Zone, man?
I think they're. Okay, I don't think they fit the aesthetic of the movie, which luckily the titles are nowhere except for the credits in the actual movie itself.
Yeah. Again, this is just me on Spotify. This is nothing against the movie.
But I do like how corny they are, I think, because I feel like a lot of Batman's not as corny, but a lot of superhero movies have a little bit of corn to them. You know, they got a little bit of cob.
I think the Batman, being as serious as it is, does still have that corny comic book feel.
For sure, yeah.
Which is again just incredible.
The soundtracks, the titles are very goofy, but I think me remembering that and having that as like what's the name of the song? A Perfect Crime. You know, I'm gonna remember that, and I think I like that about it. Maybe not the first choice, but I do enjoy those titles.
I just can't fight City Halloween. Sting me.
I didn't know Highway to the Anger Zone.
Yeah, that was the one I read, and I was like, "You're kidding me!" I mean, it's an incredible song.
Great.
It's awesome.
The whole soundtrack.
Yeah, the whole soundtrack,
tier.
beginning to end, is great. Do you have a negative?
I have negatives of specific scenes, but just to go
keep
more
it kind
broad.
of spoiler free, because one of mine is very spoilery.
Yeah, I'm all for. I think most of the time I can always subvert my real life like knowledge of how the world works and everything. Physics, all that sort of stuff. And I can get behind like playing with that stuff a lot. There's one scene in the movie where I think just because of how important the action is of what happens, it's so hard to dance around this.
Yeah, it involves the penguin, right?
It involves the penguin.
Okay,
The penguins
and
it involves like cars and collision and stuff. But I think there was a point in that scene where the main focus of that scene was something that I had to subvert my beliefs of the world. And the world already being this so believable version of Gotham that I loved. It was the only part in the movie where I felt like I was like taken out and I was like, oh, I'm watching a movie, and that like small 2-second span was the only part of the movie where I was like, man, I didn't like that. And the rest of it was I was just like, okay, I really couldn't care less about it now. After the scene went on.
You're like just hearing you talk and just stuff. We might have to actually do a spoiler review for this movie because there's so much more I want to talk about. Like I was just thinking of all the things. Like we didn't even get to the Riddler's traps, and like which are incredible. The cinematography and the way they went about that. I was actually watching a video. They contacted Arri, I'm pretty sure, and had them make lenses for them just to like make them feel a bit dirtier and everything. Because like the feel this movie gives you is awesome.
It's great. I heard critiques of the Riddler's riddles not being a main focus point of the movie as well. I enjoyed it through and through.
I think they're such a main focus part of the movie.
Yeah.
I have heard like some people say that, and I disagree with it just because how it relates back to Batman. When you get that ending of what this movie's about, and
for sure, it makes so much more sense then. After you finish the movie, watching it a second time, which we did watch it twice, the riddles, they look different and they appear in a different light, and they make a lot more sense the second time you watch it around too, which you can notice it too after the movie's over, but seeing it a second time, it really brings it to your attention too, which I thought was just a really cool thing to do.
And then my last negative, which like is a tough one to dance around because there's been a deleted scene that's come out, and I know a lot of people have seen that just because it's pretty big, but there is a certain character that appears in this movie that I don't mind the character's appearance. I have some issues with it. It's the scene itself I don't love. I wish they honestly replaced it with a deleted scene. I think Matt Reeves said he had put it in there to add world building. In no means is this character the villain of the Batman 2 or the villain of any Batman movie moving forward. They just said we just want this to feel like a lived-in Gotham.
Yeah.
And I think the deleted scene they took out, putting that earlier in the movie, would have given that feel way more than the one they put in the movie.
I actually agree, because now that you mention it, that was another point in the movie where that scene just felt like something of setup or something.
Yeah, some weird studio note that just like didn't quite fit. Again, in no way is the scene bad. Like it's not this downright horrible scene. It still works. It's really nicely lit. It's coolly shot. The acting is great.
It's where I wonder if it's because I loved the rest of the movie so much that scene kind of held different to me. But at the same time, it did feel different, and I can't let that I can't just ignore that. And the deleted scene, I think
I love it. I love it.
At first, I wasn't too fond of it in the first minute or so, but the second the scene started kicking up, it fits the theme and the motives of the Riddler and everything about the movie so well.
Yeah, it does.
It was a great deleted scene.
Out of 7 riddles, how many riddles do you give this movie?
You're killing me. You know what? I'm gonna go just because I know the third time. And maybe the 4th and the 5th, because I'm gonna keep watching this movie. I might get HBO Max because of this. I'm gonna have to give this 7 out of 7 riddles. This is a near perfect movie where the only things that I disliked I can get over because everything else is just so good, and it scratched an itch for me.
You give this movie a 10 out of 10, man?
Because
we just come up with funny rating things. Yeah. I've never seen you give a movie a 10 out of 10.
Besides maybe like Hereditary. And
I still remember talking about Hereditary and you said like 9 out of 10.
I probably said like 9.5. Honestly, I might be expecting the 3rd and 4th watch through, but right now it's holding such good light to me, and it's one of my favorite movies right now.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies right now. I'm giving this 8 out of 7 riddles. It's better than any scale I could say. This movie is something I've dreamed of for a long time.
The new riddle now. You switched to the 8th riddle.
The 8th riddle.
The 8th riddle.
This is something I've been dying to see. And just seeing it and being as good as it was. Like one movie I got really excited for was The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And that didn't work out.
Yeah.
So the fact that I just got really excited about a movie, like just was in it. I didn't even care if I liked it or disliked it in like a certain extent. I just wanted this experience, and the fact that I got this experience and it's the experience that it was, it's an 8 out of 11 movie. 8 out of 11.
8 out of 11.
8 out of 7. I just want to say 11.
What really sold it for me too, along that point, is how high my expectations were, how much of an experience it was to just watch it. On top of that, stripping all that away, and I still love the movie, like as alone, taking away my expectations, taking away everything.
I want to keep talking about it. I have so much to talk about. I mean, the Batsuit in it. This is the best live-action Batsuit.
It might be one of my favorite Batman symbols too.
Yeah, and especially how it is a batarang.
Yeah, and
like,
the knives that he uses to cut. Oh my god, man!
It's awesome.
We might have to do a spoiler
Go
review at some
see
point.
The Batman. It is still in theaters. It'll come out in streaming, I think, on April 18th to
19th.
HBO
Oh,
Max.
18th, yeah.
18th or 19th, one of the two, on HBO Max. But please go see this in theaters. It's not going to be there much longer. It's one of those movies you should go run out and see as soon as possible.
It is fantastic. One of my favorite movies. How often do I give a perfect score?
Yeah, I've never seen you give a perfect score. That took me a second. I was like, did you just say 7 out of 7? I was even expecting like 6 or 5 out of 7. I remember one time we did a review and you said like 4 out of 10, and you were like, yeah, I liked it, 4 out of 10.
Only positives, like yeah, like a 4 out of 10.
But that is our review of The Batman, guys. Please go check it out, like I said.
There may be something in the way, but there's nothing in the way of you and a good movie. So.
I'm going to
more
go
time.
find a new co-host after that. Keep drinking coffee.
Enjoy.